Remember when just about every video game had a game over screen? And remember when that actually meant what it implied? A definitive ending to the current game and a clean slate for future attempts? In the transition from arcade cabinets to home consoles mainly in the 1980s, many video games, particularly single-player ones, shifted to a more lax approach where progress could be saved periodically throughout, sparing players the frustration of starting all the way over. In time, this allowed games to grow massive in scale, promising hours upon hours of content before they were decidedly finished. And it's these types of experiences that I've spent most of my life enjoying. But as I've come to study and understand game design on a more fundamental level, I now realize that the reduction or even abandonment of true game overs has had some occasional repercussions that seem to go unconsidered. So today I'd like to dust off and critically reevaluate this staple of classic arcade design. In the circles I've been a part of, true game overs are often viewed as an outdated and unnecessary punishment that does nothing besides waste time and effort. But I think there's more to this discussion than the debate over what is or isn't too punishing. Because when determining the value of any design choice, one needs to consider the context around its inclusion and any purpose or effect it has in the broader picture. When I say game over, I'm not just talking about what players get when they lose, but more so endings in general irrespective of victory or failure. Why? Because originally, game overs were not purely seen as a punishment. They primarily denoted the game's conclusion, where results were finalized to determine players' overall rating. Levels and challenges were constructed not so much to take players on a trip through a collection of content, but rather to set up difficult obstacles to overcome in order to gauge and judge proficiency in a particular situation. Here, game overs served a critical role by forcing a point of finality wherein players would answer for their performance, thus pressuring serious, absolute participation in the gameplay. However, this structural keystone's purpose became somewhat confused with the rise of progression-saving mechanics and their reframing of what losses or victories meant and entailed. When I stop to think about it, the whole idea of bookmarking a place players can retry from if they fail is a very odd and absurd advantage. Imagine if sports teams could save their score and return to it any time they face defeat, basically ensuring infinite chances to win before the game is well and truly over. Despite this one-sidedness, game over screens largely persisted and were still used in the event of quote-unquote failure, which most of the time just kicked players back to the last save point. This, I believe, is how losses became so closely associated with undoing progress rather than concluding the current playthrough. Many games retired the term altogether in favor of other messages that loosely indicated defeat. Yet even in the absence of true game overs, it would seem that the loss of progress remains the primary punishment designers can realistically threaten with, which to me only confirms how important high-stakes consequences are in game design. My personal theory on the matter is that negative gameplay consequences are, or at least were, meant to bring players one step closer to losing or otherwise hurt their competitive standing, because this, juxtaposed with rewarding good performance, supports achievement and goal orientation, which games rely on. But when the effects of punishments and game overs are synonymous, low stakes, or even unrelated, this competitive integrity becomes diluted if not jeopardized, inviting a comparatively lax or unserious attitude toward the gameplay. While save systems are very pertinent to this discussion, they're also digressive enough that I've decided to reserve my extended thoughts on them for a follow-up video. So if that sounds interesting, please stay tuned. The way I see it, a game without a conclusion is like a test without a grading period. It can't really serve its purpose without it. This final judgment is arguably the most pivotal point of a contest, because it officially, definitively records and assesses the cumulative achievements that players have worked the entire game for. It's less about managing consequences for losing and more about honoring the competitive nature of the medium by allowing victories and failures to carry their appropriate weight, motivate certain behavior, and ultimately fulfill their intended roles. Among other things, this perspective values fairness and an uncompromised sense of accomplishment, things that, from my observation, aren't respected as much in today's industry. So I would be interested to see authentic game overs reinstated and explored in more modern games. That said, I also recognize that the mitigation of the term and concept has enabled countless unique experiences that would not have existed otherwise, some of which rank among my all-time favorites. So I would never want to see these altered, nor do I intend to restrict the creativity of future projects. There are plenty of legitimate reasons why the de-emphasis of traditional gameplay elements can be not only necessary, but crucial to the success of some art, and I look forward to discussing these in due time. For now, however, I think we'd be wise not to write off true game overs as obsolete relics that deserve to stay buried, because they have served so many video games very well in the past and have just as much potential in the present.